So, morning all, and also good evening for the people on the other side of the globe. So, when I look at go-to-market strategy, I do recall incidents when I went to Glasgow for my summer semester for my MBA. And I see that there was a dean's address at the start of the summer session. Uh, she was interacting, and then finally she had a kind of a 10-minute keynote. So she started saying that I was interacting with many people were complaining about weather, typical Glasgow weather initially, and then easing out over the summer. But she said it's never bad weather; it's bad clothing. So that itself, I recall as a great marketing for the place, for the university. I was doing this through Strathclyde. So how you can look at yourself and how the perception is in the community. You can change that, and you can do service far greater than just being a dean for the university. We of course. I have always kept that in mind. Yeah, it's not about weather; it's about bad clothing. So when we come to Middle East, we see that air conditioning we put, and we try to put tie and coat when we go to the meetings. It's still bad clothing. Yeah. So yeah. So looking at those things. Yeah. Maybe this is the right starting point for our agenda today. So we will be talking about marketing, and specifically for the startup purposes. So you might find certain things are quite common for the broad-based industry, and also the specific companies which are large enough already. But for the startup, I would try to focus more in my slides. So we would keep this like 35-40 minutes presentation, and then we would have a room for Sudhirji if he wants to add a few more things, and also Q&A. So let's keep it going. Let's get cracking. So we would talk about types of market, competitive positioning, how the direct and indirect competitors look like. So and the quadrant positioning, typically you would do in your presentations. Customers buying journey. This is important topic for you, because B2C, B2B, there will be some differences. Market entry strategy, that is a critical thing. So I kept it a bit late in the agenda, but that is for the intention, with the intention. So there is a channel selection, bullseye framework, brainstorm, prioritize, test, and optimize. I'll detail about that. And also there is a great book in context with that. So there are like 19 channels from where you can choose from, and also switch over as you progress, as you develop as a company. And most important thing out of that, all the marketing is to get the right revenue. So pricing models, that also we'll look at briefly, and some takeaways possibly at the end of the session. So just reflecting back on what kind of focus should be there for the startup companies when they look at GTM strategy. It must be about creating uncontested market space and making the competition irrelevant. This is very important to me as a startup company and an advisor to startup companies. So you would not be going to your typical market where the existing customers are there, existing business offerings are there. You're trying to do different here as a startup company. So this is very important. So many people talk about blue ocean strategy. You must have gone through the book. I have it here as well. But I think a very important thing is you keep this focus always on whatever decision point you have, maybe on pricing, maybe on marketing, maybe on your operations. This is your market. This is your uncontested market space. That is your vision, and making the competition irrelevant. Yeah. Once you're in the blue ocean, I think you would tend to do that. Yeah, but it's not easy maintaining it. So maintaining the uncontested space is a challenge. Yeah. So in the types of market, I've added certain points under every category, what you can really offer. Yeah. Why factor. Yeah. So basically existing market, uh, this is one type of market where you would have existing customers and known competitors. What companies can offer is better performance, maybe new features. Your focus may not be on this. You are trying to create something new, right? So first two categories may not be as much relevant to you as like the last two categories. So resegmented market, this is where necessity to overcome the entry barriers. You take the oil business. It's not easy to enter that business, right? Because the cost of investment is so much. You can't de-risk your dead well if you are just starting as a company. So that's not a startup space, I guess. So you would resegment maybe that market, look at only drilling or look at only operations of the facility or something like that, if your startup addresses that. But still, it's not much of a relevance to you. You can always offer a niche, drastically reduce costs to enter that market, but that's about resegmentation. Now, more interesting part is cloning the market. Yeah, so basically, you can copy the startup idea, which is already successful in one set of the market, and maybe implement it in different areas. So I take examples of Yandex and Baidu. They are in Russia and China. What they do is basically they replace Google there or other search engines. So this is entry barrier, and they're just cloning the idea of what Google would do, or trying to do better also in certain aspects. So there could be language barriers, socio-political barriers. So that would be there. And the most important type of market for you is basically new market horizons. So startup niche, sell your market vision to the customers. That will be your focus. And you must like your challenges and grow these markets. Yeah. So liking the challenges is basically creating a new customer base. So I took two examples here. Model T by Ford, when it was launched, it was quite a new thing for the customers. Customers didn't know at that time this could be available for them. Same for the iPad, I would say, from Apple. So these are the typical market types. Then when we come to the competitive positioning, you would be looking at direct competitors and targeting in those direct competitors. It may not be your space again, but there could be some startup companies who are basically competing with the similar same job to be done with same solution as you. I take examples as McDonald's and Burger King. They offer the same thing pretty much. Certain people may object to that. They might say Burger King is better or the McD is better, but essentially they do the same thing, same operational excellence, similar supply chain management. So secondary competitors are also important. Yeah. Here, this is interesting. You might say why Skype and business class flights are competing with each other. So this is basically competing on the outcomes. So what you really want to do through Skype or Zoom as against the business class flights is basically attend a workshop, do a presentation, have the business meetings. Both can do that. Yeah. Customer experience is different, but your purpose is solved. Yeah, you can do meetings, and more so in last 18 months, we would have experienced that there was no option than to do either Skype, Zoom, or Google Meet, or things like that. So certain competitors are not very obvious, but they are competitors. And the most important competitors, I would say, are indirect competitors for startups. So while addressing two different jobs of the same customer, you end up finding that the jobs themselves are competing with each other. Yeah. So you may be looking at facilitating payments. Yeah. But the customer also would be looking at how to balance this the amount of third-party integration there, analyzing time spent by the team. You're trying to analyze how your team works, but is it affecting your trusting work environment? So there has to be a balance between that, transparency, things like that. Yeah. So these are very, very important. Similarly, you can say analysis tools and the response time. At times they are working against each other. Yeah. So you need to look at that as for competitive positioning. There has been quite a few advices on how to position yourself on the competitive space. So there has been a school of thought that people have this quadrant mechanism, magic quadrants. Of late, business schools, this idea was developed initially uh, in 80s and 90s. It has worked quite well for the regular industry types. For the startups, it may not really drive home the points. What happens is you put things into access criteria. The audience or the customer starts seeing that, are you really different from your competitors? So to make the differences more visible, you would have to maybe go to the grid structure. And what typically in the quadrants happen is you may rate them on convenience and uh, cost of your offering, and you may show that you're in a better quadrant. But then they will say, are you only looking at your product on the price and convenience? Is there any other factor? The quadrant mechanism doesn't help you there. So the suggestion is, and I must put a caveat here, that offering and theme, which I'm showing on the screen, uh, it has basically a limitation there, and this may not be real. This is for the demonstration purposes. But basically, your competition slide, if you have your best benefits listed on the order of priority from topmost to the least important, maybe four or five benefits you may have, and how your competition looks like on those on that grid, that will drive home the point better than the quadrant, because then you would have shown where you are faring better, and try to encompass everything in those benefits area. On the right side, try avoiding those cross marks, because those are so mundane and they clutter so much. You may not get the focus right. Yeah. So there has been advices of late that Porter's five forces analysis is quite an important tool. It's important, but don't limit yourself only to that. Yeah, that would be the advice. Five forces drills into industry more than a specific company. So if you're looking at the industry, do that. It creates quite a good information booklet. It gives you data points. It gives you the start points. But of course, this five forces analysis is backward looking and maybe susceptible to blind spots. Yeah. So that is what I wanted to say. Then there is a customer buying journey. So buyer's journey basically in the B2C and B2B is a little different. So I'll take you through the familiar space first. In a B2C environment, you typically have kind of awareness campaigns through right from radio, TV to word of mouth to email, PPC. Then they will start thinking about it. So consideration, social ads, reviews, blogs, media, direct email, e-commerce store would actually help them do the purchase or prompt them to do the purchase. Also, your website will be important. On the retention, though, you must be visible on those community forums, social networks, kind of FAQs, knowledge base you'll be creating. And if you want your customer, we are talking about large customer base here, being a B2C offering, you would be looking at advocacy also, but that becomes more and more important in the B2B space. I'll come in a minute with regards to that. So basically, you need to get them talking about you and your product and your services. They might initiate some blogs or posts in the social networks. It can become a newsletter of quite often at the end of this kind of a journey. But you must be looking at this as a B2C, from awareness to consideration to purchase to retention and then advocacy in certain cases. So that will be your B2C buying journey understanding. In the B2B, though, there are different other steps you need to look at. Yeah. So basically, steps for B2B journey are understandably different. You need to know the bigger picture, why your business customer will come to you, and who are the real customers. So 80-20 rule applies here. We all know that there's a famous popular understanding that 80% of your business comes from 20% of your customers. So keep that in mind, who you need to really engage with. Are you wasting your time? Are you sweating it out unnecessarily? Are you focusing it right? Yeah. So, but the most important thing is when you sell your idea first and then the service and product to a customer, and if he's a business customer, look at it the way he will be experiencing your service or product. So that's very important. Yeah. So you can go for B2B hunt with that in mind. And first and foremost important point is your customer may not be even aware that there is a problem which needs some action solution. So your entry point as an idea for them would be to making them aware that that information journey, it can take a bit longer, but you need to help them so that they are becoming aware in the B2B space. Once they come to consideration stage, your job is like halfway through. Yeah. So you need to now sell the cost benefits to them, and they would then start buying. And if you have given the right promises, this is very important. I've not written here on the slide, but delivering on the promise pretty much depends on what promise you have given before the sale. So give those promises which you can fulfill or maybe exceed. So this is very important. So once you have their delight, they can give you testimonials, referrals, all those things. But that's very important. There's some typo there, so I'll correct that. Now, how to reach to them is basically about creating traction, yeah, and using different channels. So I just a time check, and also wanted to check if I'm going pretty fast. If you want to pause for a minute, if you want to ask me anything in the earlier context, or we can keep it at the end. That's also fine. Okay, take pause as a positive note. So I'll go to the next. Yeah. So this is pretty much important topic here for this session today. And we can just go through this book called Traction. And they say traction trumps everything. So a startup is a company designed to grow fast. You would not exist unless after a few years, unless you grow in those first years. And then retaining that growth is becoming critical once you are matured in the market space. But at the start, you must grow faster and faster than the competition, faster than the regular industry. So everything else we associate with the startups follows from the growth. So once you have growth, then everything else follows. Yeah. So traction is growth. Choosing right channel can give you that traction. So pursuit of traction is what defines a startup. So there are like 19 type of channels for startup growth. So I'll take you through them quickly. So I have put like six channels on one slide. So you would find 3 slides covering 3 or 4 slides covering 19 channels. So from left to right and then to the bottom, viral marketing, and there are quite a few examples there. Uh, these are quite self-explanatory, so I would not spend long time on this, but viral marketing, as you know, and this is pretty much used by Twitter, Facebook, Dropbox as well initially. Public relations, unconventional PR, these two are important. Search engine marketing, social display ads, offline ads. So this is pretty much the space you would look at if you are in those one of those startup types. Yeah. Uh, then there would be search engine optimizations. This is becoming more and more important. Content marketing, that is important. Email marketing always has a space. But important thing for you, as we are like almost through 9 channels so far, so we're halfway through. So choosing the right channel at right point in time, that's very important. So channels are available. You can say every channel is great, but you have to use maybe 1 or 2 channels or 3 channels at the start. You may have to switch the channels as you progress. So keep that in mind. Engineering as marketing is quite important for a person like me. So that was kind of eye-catching. Targeting blogs, business development, of course, this is pretty important for companies like Kayak and Half. Use partnerships to acquire millions of customers. Yeah. Sales. So people sometimes confuse sales with marketing. So sales is a channel to get traction. So your sales matter a lot. So affiliate programs, existing platforms, trade shows, offline events, speaking engagements. So you need to choose right channels as per that customer journey for the buyers if you are in B2B space or B2C space. So in general, community building, that is the last one pending here. So we have listed all these 19. There will be a kind of assignment after this during the coming week to go through this. And I would really recommend this book, Traction, which gives startup guide to the startups to get the right customers and create growth as required. So why Traction, and how you can really do this as a market entry strategy is basically bullseye framework. So through the bullseye framework, you can look at how you can do the goal setting for Traction. Ideas are basically around this, that you avoid overcrowded paths, try to use underutilized channels. This is critical because certain channels are overutilized and you don't really get the footfall there. So brainstorm, prioritize, test, and optimize. That's the framework. That's the bullseye framework. There are 4 steps. I'll take you through those 4 steps, how this can be get done. But important point is the first one as well, that you need to apportion your startup costs right. Yeah. At times you focus more on your product and service and spend as much as possible on product and service. This is right when you're building a product. Once you have built that product, your cost on the product should come lesser and lesser, and you should put what gets you attraction. You should put your spending. So they even recommend a rule of as much as product, as much as traction. Yeah. So it's so important. So it's not just some percentage of your spend in the marketing. It's bigger than the marketing even, I would say. Creating traction is kind of a creating perception, retaining that perception as well. So there's a journey there. So in the brainstorm, yeah, basically you can acquire customers in a channel your competitors are ignoring. So that is that underutilized channel, and brainstorm for that. What is the best channel for me? at that point in time. Of course, the time context is very important. So that's a huge competitive advantage. Yeah. So brainstorm and then prioritize. So easy to test potential impact of your channel, and are there any compounded effects. So that is the second step. The third step is very important: testing it. So search for signs that a channel is working. So that will give you a kind of a testing feedback loop. And once you know you are double down, you basically can optimize, you can offer what works, find what works, and then do more of it. So keep on doubling down. So in conclusion, find your channel, and most importantly, crush it. Yeah, crush the competition. Go for the right marketing channel and use it as much as you can. So this is that brainstorm of prioritize, test, optimize bullseye framework. So would like to get your attention there. Now, finally, the pricing models. Yeah, some people take pricing models as revenue generation model. Uh, I see this much more than that. Pricing is also a messaging in the marketing space. So the way you price it maybe can be broadly summarized in the three different categories: maximization of revenue growth. This is basically if there is no clear differences in customer segments, similar willingness to pay by customers, you can go for optimal short-term and long-term prices. If they are similar, you can go for revenue growth. So your focus will be to maximize it. The second pricing model could be penetration, and these are basically mutually exclusive ways of make you grow. Yeah, so you can switch from one to another, but it is basically choosing the right pricing model so that you can develop on it. Yeah, so penetration of market share. Start with lowest possible price, bottom up strategy. What are your costs? What you can do on the costs, and uh, find a right price to enter so that you can penetrate the market. Quite a few startup companies I've interacted in this space are in this category. They have to make the entry, make the presence felt in the market, and then once they have grown, they have the large customer base, they can improve on the pricing. So develop broad adoption over time. So that is important. The third category is skimming. So you want to maximize the profit. So in this pricing model, so start with the high price, systematically product the product, add features to it, add more services, keep the price so that this can be done. Also, this is used in the hardware space, and there are famous examples. I'll take you there. So the lower the price for earlier versions. Keep selling them as well, because that will give you more customer base. That will broaden your customer base. So pricing strategy should be explicit. Decide which strategy to pursue. So out of these, what is best for you? So I put a picture of Steve Jobs intentionally. People call him product genius. You also start, I would strongly advise that you also start looking at his tenure at Apple and tenures at Apple as pricing genius as well. So he's not just product genius, he is certainly a product genius, but not just that. He also made Apple grow on the revenue front, on the customer base, by offering higher price for the latest version, and this has been the norm even over last 10 years when he's not around. So I call him and many others in the business space call him pricing genius as well. So have a look at that. So key pricing fundamentals are basically revenue generation, volume growth. So basically you need to look at your team. That may include like sales, marketing, production, engineering as well, and even R&D. how they are aligned with your pricing fundamentals. And you can poll them, you can basically survey them and get them aligned. Yeah, so that's very important. Sometimes there is a gap in this front. So that is why we wanted to bring this up. So revenue generation, volume growth, stepping up the market share, and sustainable profit generation. So these will be the fundamentals for whatever pricing model you choose. So in conclusion, I have some points in here. So just before that, marketability is quite an important aspect. It is knowing that which business you are really in. So there's a famous example I came across with regards to Rolex. Basically, the CEO sometime in the 80s and 90s, Andre Heinegger, uh, one of his friend asked casually in a coffee shop, how is the watch business going? So he had a different answer. He said, I have no idea. So that coming from a very big name in the watch industry surprised him. So he repeated his question. Really, you don't have any idea about how's the watch business? He politely answered, basically, we are not in the watch space, watch making space, or watch sales space. We are essentially into luxury space. And luxury space is growing faster, as you can imagine. So that was the focus. Yeah, so marketability of and looking at what you're really offering. So if you see Rolex, they don't just offer the watches, they offer luxury, and that is what their main customer base is. Yeah, so that's very important. Many traditional businesses have reasonable time on their side, but startup strategic timing is more like a life-saving gadget. Yeah, so that's very important. Timing may not be on your side, so you need to grow fast, implement your ideas faster. Once you start making your visibility there in the market, customers don't experience your product or service in a vacuum. They always have something to compare. So as long as you really differentiate from your competitors, you can serve yourself better. So look at that. They are not looking at you in vacuum. They have options to go with. So GTM focus should be to make your alternative less and less attractive so that you can crush it. Yeah. Don't ignore indirect competition. In fact, that is the most and more direct in affecting startups, so positively or negatively. So look at the indirect competition. Uh, Look for blue ocean, of course, so that you can position yourself better uh, there in the business environment. Spend as much as on traction as much as you would do on the product, as I've said before. So use right channels at right time. Switch channels as you grow, as your scenario changes. Yeah. So adapt to new scenarios faster than others. Align your team all the time. Yeah, because this is not easy. You may align at the start, your pricing model may change going forward, your traction may change going forward, and you want to improve on the traction. So align. So that closes my 40 minutes of fame. So if there are any questions, this could be the right time to go for it. And I hope I've covered some aspects. I think in the flux of presenting, if I've missed something, do let me know. If you are not clear about something, I can go back to the slide as well.